Welcome to the Darcy Wellness Show, and this week we're covering our Diet Detox Program. It's the third week of the program, of a 2-week program, and we're finally finished. I'm Geoff Darcy. I'm an acupuncturist and herbalist at the Darcy Wellness Clinic, and with me is my wife, Po Darcy, my wife and partner, and other people in the studio who have just been through this process of restricting their diet and controlling detoxification. So. If we could just go into it, what is detoxification? Mm-hmm. So if we lead off with our first slide, the whole idea of detoxification is that it's a clearing of toxins from the body. So it's neutralizing them and transforming them, clearing excess mucus and congestion. And what we find is by doing this first week of fruits and vegetables and then adding in grains and beans, this process really allows the body to get rid of stagnation and better oxygenate itself. And it involves a shift in diet and lifestyle. And basically by doing organic foods, we start to ingest a higher quality of nutrients, and this starts a detoxification process in the body. So what are we detoxifying, Po?
Well, we're detoxifying all of those so-called, the actual pollutants that are in our environment. Pollutants and toxins that we take in not only from the air and the water that we breathe that we can avoid, but also certain chemicals and pesticides and herbicides that are in processed foods, in conventional produce that is just kind of the way it is right now. We really have to be very careful about the foods that we choose, especially when we're talking about produce.
It's kind of interesting that 10 pounds of chemicals are used on our food supply, and we ingest it every single year. If we go to our next slide on environmental toxins, basically herbicides and pesticides are thrown on these crops with a great deal of abandon. There are over 100,000 potentially harmful chemicals that we will be exposed to during our lifetimes, that accumulate in our bodies and that overload the liver's ability to filter them and very often get tucked away in fat cells. And even DDT, which is illegal to use in this country, is used in countries where our fruit is grown. For instance, Chile will use DDT on the fruits and then ship it back into the American market. So the idea of detoxifying is about detoxifying these can be very harmful chemicals over time. So what does the detoxification process? Well, our liver is pretty remarkable. If we go to our next slide, I especially like the pretend liver with one eye lifting up the weights there. But it's designed to convert fat-soluble chemicals into water-soluble so that they can be easily excreted. Now, these chemicals have never been exposed to the liver in the whole history of mankind up to about 50 years ago. And then suddenly phase 1 and 2 liver enzymes have to break these chemicals down, have to then excrete them through the digestive process. And very often what happens is our livers get more sluggish and it doesn't really break them down well enough. And these potential carcinogens and free radicals are neutralized by being tucked away into fat cells. So what our premise is that by taking this organic food, this organic vegetables, going back to real food, leaving out refined foods, leaving out foods that have been exposed to pesticides and herbicides, we give our liver a break for a 2-week period once a year. And this 2-week period once a year, instead of 70% of the body's processes being consumed with detoxification, suddenly with this break and only eating real foods, the liver is able to regenerate itself. Maybe the detoxification process goes down to about 40%. There's a lot more energy, and the liver starts to raise up his game. So over the last 2 weeks, what you guys have suffered through has been a great benefit to raising up our liver's ability to break down these external toxins. And it's just not external toxins of the chemicals leaching from styrofoam, the chemicals on our food, the chemicals that we're exposed to in cleaning agents, in paints, from any myriad of roots that come into us, even lead in the air. It's also, the liver is responsible for breaking down internal toxins. So breaking down viruses and bacterias and funguses in the blood and converting them into bile and excreting them out into the intestine. So it's a very important organ in the body to break down. So
and it's also why we recommend doing this kind of detox once a year, because it really isn't, especially in the spring, it's a time of rebirth and new beginnings, and it's an opportunity to give your vital organs, the liver being the main one that we're targeting right now, but giving them a sense of renewal. Just basically all of your vital organs will respond to this detoxification process. You're working at it, but you're also giving your body and your organs a big rest. So consequently, you're re-energizing yourself. And I guess we should go around and see how it actually went for you guys. Like, what did you feel? What was the process like? Did you get what you were looking for? And what were the surprises that you discovered?
It's like a written exam.
And if
Okay,
we
Tom, you're in the hot
have the mic, we can pass it to Tom.
So pretty much you just completed you did the first week of fruits and vegetables, went through the
So this
grains and beans.
It's been 2 weeks.
Yep.
I stuck actually to the phase 1.
Uh-huh.
I did that most of the time for the last 2 weeks. I didn't really go into the other phase as much, basically because at the end last session, I actually could still feel that. I get this feeling, kind of, I can't describe it, like this fuzzy kind of things are still coming out of my system feeling.
Yeah.
And that was still going on, so I wanted to make sure
Keep
that
going.
was completed.
Yeah.
And it wasn't really until like 3 or 4 days ago that I felt like my system was really kind of stabilizing.
Interesting,
From
yeah.
that. And I kind of enjoyed it, and
Yeah.
I just wanted to kind of keep going.
Yeah.
So I did have a rice cake yesterday, and I was surprised. I had a little almond butter, and it was like steak.
Told ya.
But I'll just say that when I in the past I have gone on a similar diet. It's not exactly the same with just the fruits and vegetables, which was interesting. But I have a desk job, and I have this real problem, like getting tired after lunch, or up and down, the normal ups and downs during the day. And when I'm on this kind of diet, I have very, very level energy through the day, and even into the evening a little more.
Yeah.
So it works out pretty well. So
That's
pretty
interesting. Well, the explanation for that is that your body doesn't have to work so hard to break down the food and extract the nutrients from it. So you're actually, food as energy, you're experiencing that in a much more efficient way. Mm-hmm. So you're not getting the sluggish ups and downs. Yeah, good job.
So very good.
Excellent.
Actually, that would be a good lead into our next slide, the idea of food is energy. We covered in week 1 and 2 the whole idea of the phytonutrients that are in food, the phytochemicals, the antioxidants that the body doesn't get, is not born with antioxidants in it, that we get it from the plant food that we eat, or the animals that we eat that eat the plant food. But the animals that we eat, that eat the plant food, really don't have a lot left over in their tissues. But those are our major supplies of antioxidants that really are tremendous anti-aging agents in our body, and also protect us against our DNA cells being copied incorrectly or damaged. So by broadening a large amount of fruits and vegetables, we have all those phytonutrients on a biochemical level. But as our next slide will show, that food also has an energetic component too. The food in Chinese medicine, they say the vegetables leaves have qi, a life force to them. This is a picture of a Kirlian photograph with the top cut off, and you can still see the phantom limb projecting out from the leaf. So if we were to eat that leaf, we would get the nutrients on a biochemical level, but we would also get that energy. And that's a large part about fresh food, is the ability to get the energy, to transform the energy, as well as the phytonutrients in the food. So hopefully that's why we feel a little bit more energetic when we have a week full of, fruits and vegetables, or as Tom did, 2 weeks of fruits and veggies.
Yeah, what we would call real food.
Real food as opposed to food
Yeah.
that's been kind of manufactured or refined or, packaged. Something that actually will rot if you put it on the shelf for 3 or 4 weeks.
So how'd you do, Amy?
Good. I really enjoyed it, actually. This week that we had also like rice cakes and barley, things like that, was a lot easier. It became kind of a routine. I started to lose the desire to go eat horribly fat and full of protein food.
Right.
But I also stopped losing weight.
Uh-huh.
I lost almost 10 pounds the first week.
Oh,
and
10
That's
yeah.
amazing in 1
Yeah.
week, though.
stayed there this week.
Yeah.
I
Well,
hope,
it's an interesting point. I think oftentimes what happens is there's kind of plateaus.
Yeah.
That you drop very quickly. Maybe, certainly the first week of fruits and vegetables, what we found is people drop a lot of water, a lot of excess water maybe hanging around the body. And then it starts to, to start to get to the fat cells. And the
sounds right.
second week, sometimes there is a kind of a stabilizing as you add in the grains, but it's also about the amount of grains that you add back in too. Were you?
I hope I
watching the
wasn't
volume a little?
overeating the grain. I think
Yeah.
I feel less hungry. Like before the diet, I would come home really, really hungry and put a huge amount of calories on bread and cheese and things
Yeah.
like that before dinner. And I find it less necessary. I also agree with Tom about energy being stable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And altogether, I'm really happy with it.
Yeah.
I think that you might find too that when you kind of hit a plateau, you might go along like this for a week or two, or I don't know if you're going to continue on or not. We'll talk a little bit later about what we've been up to is really not a diet for life. It's really a short diet for detoxification and weight loss and re-energizing ourselves, reprogramming our habit patterns, but really not a diet for life.
It appears to me that stage 3 could be close to diet for life.
Yes.
if you want.
Yeah.
I kind
It
of
actually.
want to
Yeah.
think that way.
It's
Yeah.
fun. It's fun to play with it and see how it feels.
Yeah.
But you may go along like this for another 2 weeks, and then suddenly
Yeah.
you start to notice a little bit more weight loss again.
Yeah, I was going to say that too, that your body, it's like a body-mind works together, and your body is learning to trust that you're going to maybe continue this way, and it will readjust itself. Your metabolism will readjust itself, and then chances are will get to the weight that you're meant to be at. It just kind of, you find your perfect weight.
Like Poe never loses any weight.
Yeah, when I do this,
On a
I don't
detox
really
period.
lose weight, but
No.
I don't need to lose weight. So
Right.
but I still feel lighter. I feel
Some
more
of us
energized.
who should lose a little bit of weight lose.
But the people who need to, no, just kidding.
I would assume
You
you're
tend
game.
to kind of, after a while, I think when you start to, really understand food as energy and your energy and eating more from that perspective, you just find your own weight, your own
Yeah.
comfortable.
Well, I wasn't worried about it,
Yeah.
about the weight loss. I
Yeah.
said to myself, I'm not about the weight loss.
Right,
Yes.
I really
Yeah.
welcomed it when it
Right.
came.
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah.
Good job.
Good job.
How'd it go for you?
Catherine?
Well, I was really lucky because the first week I got sick. So when I have a cold, I lose my appetite anyway. So I was happy to drink tea and broth for a week. So
Yeah.
So easy to do.
it was
Yeah.
very easy to do the first
The
week.
virus
I'm
diet.
sorry
The
you were
virus,
sick.
exactly. And I wonder, did I pick up a virus at work, or maybe because I was detoxifying, stuff came out. I don't know,
Yeah.
buried viruses or
Yeah.
what. But so the first week actually went by, pretty quick without too much, and I did lose weight. But I noticed more physical changes. Like I was suffering a lot from GERD, and I haven't had that. So obviously,
great.
something
So
I
it's
was
not-
drinking milk or something before was
Yeah.
causing it. Also,
Oh, it's great to know that.
that I found that after eating, maybe, and I wasn't eating large portions, but I would always feel, that my stomach would be distended. I'd be uncomfortable even after a small amount of food, and that hasn't happened either since then. So I'm physically more comfortable.
Great.
So
You know, the
it's been very
interesting thing,
good.
Alkalizing.
Yuan Ling, who's an acupuncturist herbalist at the Darcy Wellness Clinic, is also a registered dietitian. She's going to give a little presentation tonight because we have a great opportunity coming back in from a week of eating, 2 weeks of eating pure, to rotate in certain foods, you know, and, you know, you don't have to suffer doing a rotation diet. You've kind of already done it, so you're all in a pure state. When you bring back in a food that you have a reaction to, you know,
And
like
you'll
dairy
notice it.
products, or, you know, we had a lady on our last program who was terribly allergic, didn't realize it, to beef. Would have a massive
Yeah.
reaction. She discovered that by rotating it back in. So working
Yeah.
with a registered dietitian
Yeah,
like
she broke out in hives all
Yuan
over her
Ling
body.
would be very interesting for you.
But, you know, currently I don't have any desire to bring some of those things back in.
That's
Right,
interesting. Yeah.
which is kind of
Yeah.
the goal.
So in a way, I think my taste palette has changed. And so things that I used to find appealing, it's not, I don't find them interesting or that I want that taste.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah,
Well done.
excellent.
Good job.
I'd have to say it was easier, you know, with whole grains. We ate rice, brown rice, barley. Found some really nice recipes. I don't know if we'd ever tried them before, but my taste has become clearer, so I can eat certain fruits and vegetables and really enjoy them without wanting to put stuff on them. And I've just been using olive oil and lemon juice mostly for dressing, and not want anything else. So that's nice. Feel good. I've plateaued too as far as weight loss, and that pretty much happened after the first phase. And that's
It's kind of
really
interesting to think about. You know, I was just wondering how many were saying about the grains, and I think it might be interesting to think about in the zone diet with Barry Sears. He recommends 1/3 protein, 2/3 fruits and vegetables. So the whole idea of grains, I've been experimenting with really cutting way back on brown rice, on grains, and it's kind of fun to play with. You might play around with that and see how that feels.
Well, the thing is, when I was just eating fruits and vegetables, I'd get this kind of burning kind of hunger in my stomach, and I don't get that with the grains. But I found that I almost kind of like it. It was almost like it gave me a little bit of a thrill. I don't know how to describe it, but it kind of felt good. It felt like it was like an emptying kind of thing. And it really sort of felt kind of
Like a lightning?
like a
lightening up.
gritty niceness. I don't know how to describe it. So that's it. Once again, my hands and my knees feel great. They haven't felt as flexible, and they just feel like they did probably when I was 20 or something.
Wow.
That's
Wow.
fantastic.
It's nice.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. And like Geoff says, everybody is slightly different. Some people really do well with the whole grains, like really ingesting the whole grains, really taking the nutrients from that. Other people do better with, balancing the grains with the protein more. So you really need, now has the opportunity to kind of find out what is a balanced plate for them.
Yeah, balanced plate. I really I've been thinking a lot about this whole idea of genes. The idea that we're just cursed or blessed with the genes we've got, and there isn't much else that comes into play. And you can do a genetic test that will tell you, okay, you'll have breast cancer or prostate cancer. You've got those genes. But it's not a static. There are many people, and there's a lot of science showing it's not a static situation. That there's an interplay between food and our genes. There's an interplay between exercising and not exercising, between being under stress and being relaxed. So all of that adds into the mix. So I really think that this idea of being genetically predisposed to something can be altered and changed, and that comes down to individualizing. Because we've spoke over the weeks about that lactose intolerance the people who developed the ability, the enzyme to break down lactose came from 15 generations of cow herders in, northern European, and people who were hunter-gatherers never really developed that enzyme. They become more lactose intolerant. So trying to find out what our kind of historical diet is, and like my British one might be meat and potatoes, so I might choose to leave out the meat and add a lot more vegetables, but the idea of looking for comfort foods that are based around healthy parameters, like we've discussed the China study and the Okinawan study, where they have phenomenal health around, mainly a plant-based diet with grains, with beans, with a little bit of chicken or fowl, no red meat. Within those parameters, to play around with what works, what kind of portion of grains, what works for me might not work for you. So I like the idea of playing around with that, seeing what we come up with, and it's individualizing it. I don't think there's one size fits all for food, and that certainly we know that we can majorly shift our destinies. If we're genetically predisposed to heart disease, then you can shift that destiny by balancing the hormonal intake, and we'll talk a little bit about the chronic inflammation that goes on in the body that leads to heart disease. Well, just eating the way we've been eating, certainly in the last week, will create a balance that will make that very hard for that gene to come through and skew us off in that direction. So I think that we can, by balancing ourselves hormonally, really shift this whole dynamic with our heritage or our genes.
Mm-hmm. And also, I was just thinking about the, like when you like the feeling of phase one, that the phases definitely are flexible, and that you felt like you weren't ready to go into phase two, and we're sort of listening to your body. We can do that on a daily basis. Like you can have a phase one morning, and then a phase two lunch, and a phase three dinner. You could like kind of schedule yourself so that if you like that feeling in the morning, or maybe you like that feeling at night, so you can actually really tune into your needs and your sort of desire for getting that feeling of lightness and schedule that into your day. So it's interesting.
Well done.
Okay.
How'd it go for you?
It's gone really well.
Oh, good.
Everything's been going well. I'm sleeping well. I didn't do the phase 2 to 3. I've played a little bit, just a little bit of grains and a little tofu. And I added the grains and the tofu when I felt really hungry, and I had to put something on my plate that just felt a little heavier. Mm-hmm. But I didn't want to change over right away because I was comfortable doing like phase 1. Mm-hmm. I called Poe today, and I had to get 4 books. So I have not been talking about this. I've been just
Really?
doing it, and I haven't been pushing my husband to do it. I've been really behaving, just eating my fruits and vegetables and minding my business. And now my brother wants to do it, and so whatever I'm doing, I think they're shocked that they're seeing me continue with my lunch the way it is every day, or going out to dinner and not having a drink, choosing the vegetables and handling it. So that was really, I felt
great.
I was very proud of myself. We went to
Has
dinner.
anybody commented? It sounds almost corny when you walk in, especially we're in a studio, but everybody has something shifted about them.
Yeah.
A glow or a change, a little weight loss. A little weight loss helps, especially in the face for most of us.
Yeah.
Anybody picked up on anything?
Weight loss.
The weight loss.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
They're just, I guess, kind of stunned. I don't know. So it's between 12 and 14 pounds. So.
Wow.
That's 2 weeks. That's fantastic.
And it's real. I keep getting back on the scale, like, wow. but it plateaued. So I'm like, oh, it's not going down. But that's okay, because then I don't think it's real at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping it. And I didn't do this to lose weight. I figured,
Right.
that might help me to get in a place where I can lose weight.
Right. Right.
But I'm just hoping that I can continue eating this way and slowly working my way out of the detox diet, because you
Yeah.
can't do it forever.
Right.
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 But slowly working it out and maintaining a nice, healthy lifestyle. That's
Excellent.
my
Excellent.
hope.
Yeah.
So,
And I
goal.
think, that's the
That's the
way,
goal.
I think you did it exactly right. That's the way to, you're obviously interested in the health and well-being of your family.
Yeah.
And, it's just patterning. You do it, people see what's happening, they see a shift, a change, they see weight loss, they're interested.
Right.
I think it's the patterning is better than the evangelical.
yes, yes. And it's hard to be quiet about it. So I was like,
Right.
just eat and be quiet. So it's worked out really well.
That's fantastic.
That's
really
excellent.
well done.
Yeah.
That's the UI.
So this is my second time. I did last year, and this year I did a lot more preparation, like how Paul said. It is hard when you're used to, grabbing things that are convenient, when you're busy, when you're,
Yeah,
trying to do everything else that's on your hands. So because I was better prepared, so this time it's much easier. I feel that I ate much better than any other time of, throughout the year.
Yeah.
So the major things that I noticed, the energetic aspect. I do eat a pretty healthy diet normally, as a lacto-over vegetarian.
I wanted to ask, as a dietitian, and you're working with food a lot. I mean,
Right.
what surprised you about
So
this approach?
my biggest comfort food is starch. In Chinese, when we see each other, we say, "Did you eat?" "Did you eat rice? Did you eat?" So for me, is starch. So I eat way too much starch, and that has a sort of a sluggish feeling, especially at night eating, starchy food. I always have a hard time getting up in the morning. Sometimes it takes me 2 minutes to hear the alarm. So during the detox, I felt, the lot more energy and also more mental clarity. So, that's the biggest part. And I stayed on phase 2, and also I would be gradually seeing how I feel to moving on to the next level.
Yeah.
Great. Well done.
Good.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Well, this time, being my 4th time, it hasn't been really that difficult. But
Yeah.
what really stands out is the amount of food that I have come to realize that I need, which isn't, a lot compared to the wheelbarrows. You know what I mean? And it's just amazing. You're not hungry. You get up, you have the rice cake, and at a break you have a pear. I've making a couple of wraps. Veggie wraps, and come home and have some stir fry, squash, and I like the mushrooms and the onions, and it satisfies you.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
the stomach does
Yeah.
shrink, and I think it
It
happens
does,
quite
I guess.
quickly
I
too,
mean, but-
within the first couple of days.
The first day was a little horrible. I mean, things went right through me.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
it stopped, and
Yeah.
I just followed right up, and
Yeah.
it's a good thing. My palate, the taste, everything tastes so good. The fruits, the salads.
So actually, I
amazing.
just realized
That's
you're the
excellent.
poster boy for Carol's patterning.
Yeah. But it's great.
Well done, really.
That's
Great
excellent.
work. both
I
of you.
also think the body becomes much more efficient in extracting nutrients from food when you start to eat more like this, so you don't need as much. Your body's getting enough more efficiently, so you're satisfied with less.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of malnutrition that goes on
Yes,
too.
that's
With the
right.
quality of food that we're
Right.
putting in. Instead of loading up on bread and cheese and still being ravenous. The body's not extracting much from that. So I think like our basic self or our cellular self settles down when we're flooding ourselves with phytonutrients, and it feels a lot more satisfied and a lot more nutrient rich. as opposed to eating a lot of cardboard with cheese on it. And
Right.
Right.
I feel like I'm picking on you, Amy. I don't mean to. I do it too.
No, and another aspect of eating refined carbohydrates, for example, is that not only does it not really give you the nutrients, but it actually depletes your already body nutrients. So it's depleting your storehouse. So that again is, you're probably eating more because you're hungrier because you're not getting the nutrients, and then you're depleting your nutrients more, so you eat more. So it's like this vicious circle of depletion rather than nourishment. So then ironically, once you start to get away from those kind of foods and eating more whole foods, you nourish yourself much more efficiently with less. So it's a very interesting process.
Especially when you consider that a vegetable in 1940 had, about 10 times more nutrients in it than the commercially farmed, where the soil is raped with 3 crops a year. There's no concept of leaving fallow. There's no mom and pop farms where the manures. I don't know. I see the dog on my lawn, and the grass is growing pretty strong. Wherever the dog goes, and I'm sure it's true with cows. You get all those minerals and nutrients into the soil is pulled up into the vegetables that we eat, and they're 10 times more. So I think that the idea of eating, we think we're doing something good. It looks great in the supermarket with all the color and polish and everything that goes on it, and then we put it in us, and it doesn't have the same nutrients that it used to. So I think that this idea of malnutrition is really a very strong. So we just had 2 weeks of flooding ourselves with good nutrition, from organic sources.
Good job.
Well done. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, also my 4th year with my husband, and I have to say it's the colors and the crock pot what I love. Just looking at a fruit salad being made, and also the crock pot, because you can just add things and it just simmers real low, and you can just add things to it. And the taste buds, I never liked cauliflower, but I bought a cauliflower this year and added it to the other vegetables in the crock pot the other night, and it was really good.
Great.
It was just kind of added it to what we'd already had, but then just enjoyed it. And you can actually taste in the crock pot. You can taste each vegetable like individually. I think you get your taste buds are just so much.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That was the big
what
thing
a
this
comeback
year.
the taste buds make. Just a short period of time.
Short period of time.
Yeah.
With the water.
With the water.
Opposed to the broth, the vegetable, organic broth, it was amazing. It was amazing the taste difference.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah, so we'll be here next year.
That's a big, profound shift, Just so simple. So where do we go from here? We went through the diet detox, 2 weeks, got great benefits. How do we keep them?
Well, I think that we have learned a lot on our own. Like you guys have all taught yourself the value, especially of vegetables and fruits. And I would say that the number one ground rule for moving ahead is make sure you really incorporate fruits and vegetables every day, in massive quantities.
Yeah, it is. That's the thing to it. I think it has to be far greater quantities than we've imagined, The Okinawan studies show that they have the highest longevity in the world. They have 80% less heart disease than we do. I mean, that's an astounding figure. 80% less estrogen receptive cancers than we do. I mean, that's an astounding figure. I mean, that's mind-blowing. And what are they doing? They're having 9 to 12 portions of mainly vegetables a day. And that's hard to do. I mean, even on the detox, on the week 1, when we're shoveling in all these fruits and vegetables, we're probably up there.
I was going to ask a question
Microphone.
about when
Microphone.
we say that. Asking a question about what is the portion, what is the size of when you say serving, what is the actual size?
Yeah.
If you could give us a...
So generally, a size of a fist would be a large one, but an apple,
Half a cup
a small,
usually is
It's
what
half
they...
a cup.
half a cup of juice also. All of that
Okay.
counts and is
That
a
makes
portion.
sense.
And
I had to remember, I didn't remember
so
that.
you were saying about the colors too. When it must be one of the few things in nature that you can tell a group of chemicals by their colors. Antioxidants are the powerful, most strongest colors in fruits and vegetables. If they've got lots of color, they've got massive amounts of antioxidants. So berries, blueberries, peppers, yellow beets, maybe not so much. Yellow beets are a lot starchier, but the idea is mainly, the berries are the highest. So when we see them, getting them into us is a big deal because they provide us with this biochemical balancing of the system. I'm starting to look at the balance of the icosanoids and the arachidonic acids. and that you have these good hormones that, if they're predominant in the body, keep inflammation in control. And then you have the arachidonic acids that are tucked away into the fat cell. So more fat means more bad stuff that can create more inflammation. So there are a number of factors that feed into this. One of the big one is food. The idea of keeping ourselves in a hormonal balance is food, but also exercise plays a major part, and stress plays a major part. You know, I remember you, Carol, saying when you know, there are a number of ways of measuring the body's health. You know, there's actually blood chemistry where you can measure EPA, omega-3, and you can measure arachidonic acid, and you can get a ratio where they should be. So blood chemistry and cholesterol, all of that. But also, in terms of traditional Chinese medicine, as an acupuncturist and herbalist, Yuan Ling and I at Darcy Wellness Clinic, we do pulse and tongue diagnosis, and we get a sense of where the body is according to Chinese medicine. But also, you know, in acid alkaline, where you have these strips where you can test the saliva, see if you're on the acid side, you want to be on the alkaline side. And I remember you did the detox one year, and you were religious about doing your saliva, you were doing first morning urine, and you couldn't get a shift, and then finally you did relaxation or meditation, and that was the thing that got you to drop. So this idea of stress is so important, because stress will shift this balance of acid alkaline, or in Chinese medicine of yin yang, or blood chemistries. You know, cortisol is a way of trying the body's effort to try to control chronic ongoing inflammation in the body, and that, you know, it's trying to put the fire out, and that, you know, this cortisol can upset the balance also of these of the good inflammation controlling hormones. So one thing that's clear to me is that major amounts of fruits and vegetables, you know, from either, we also suggested people do the concentrated green drink, which is a 20-to-1 concentrate of land and sea greens, the power greens, green power, and that's a concentrated drink. Well, that gets on board nearly 3 portions of good quality organic vegetables in one small hit in the morning, and then building on top of that with a whole range of fruits and vegetables. What we covered in the detox was not eating narrowly, to try to expand our repertoire of recipes and fruits and vegetables. Try a whole new range of different things. You know, we shared with you the idea that in Crete they eat up to 150 type of different wild greens, and that even though they have 3 times the amount of fat in their diet, they have low cholesterol, as do most of the Mediterranean with fresh fruits and vegetables. So the one profound fact that I kind of think about a lot is how this plays into the body's control of the echinocenoids, and the idea of the EPA, the good omegas, how it balances against the arachidonic acid. All of this comes from phytonutrients and chemicals that are in the food. You know, we get sulforaphane from broccoli, lycopene from tomatoes, allicin from garlic. And I'm sure that every vegetable has something you could give to a scientist and they would come up with an antioxidant or a group of phytonutrients. But it's not just about these individuals. It's how a big team plays together. It's, you know, how they synergistically impact and create new phytonutrients to help protect us. So it's really about eating broadly and widely to control chronic inflammation. So I think over the next 10, 20 years, what we'll find is that cancers and heart disease and autoimmune problems will be traced back to ongoing chronic inflammation in the body that relates to these basic hormones being out of balance due to stress, due to denatured foods, and that when we change our diet, shift, bring them back into balance, flood the body with these antioxidants, with these phytonutrients, that, you know, there's a, you know, for instance, in heart disease, there's a that half the people who have heart attacks have normal cholesterol. You know, so it's not, you know, the idea of heart disease is not just about cholesterol, that it's also about inflammation. It was first thought when they started studying heart disease that it was about inflammation, a swelling up of the artery, cutting off blood supply with the chronic ongoing inflammation. So these are nature's anti-inflammatories that we're not using, and when we are using them, we're using them in a denatured way. So it's quite a rant. But, you know.
Well, to move forward, again, we're going to find naturally that as we move forward and we start to bring some of, our typical foods back in, that your plate will start to shift. Maybe now your plate is 3/4 full of fruits and vegetables because that's been the diet. So now you're going to add other foods in. So your fruits and vegetables is going to shrink on your plate. But I would never go less than at least 1/3. 1/2 to 1/3 of fruits and vegetables. And then you will bring in, and again, one of the ground rules is get as high quality nutrients as you can. So buy what you like to eat, but buy it in the best version possible, which means organic usually, locally grown organic, grown in your backyard if you can. So you've really experimented a lot with broadening and trying new things this week, so I would say keep doing that. Always try to find new foods. When it comes to whole grains, I've been reading a lot about whole grains and what a perfect food it is. I mean, it really is just, if you leave a grain on a table, for millennium, it's still going to be in its whole form.
They were freezing them in that place
down.
in where is it, in Scandinavia? Remember the seed bank where they were freezing grains and seeds? They're hoping to get 1,000 years out of those seeds in storage.
Yeah, and just like the vegetables, the grains have nutrients that the body really loves, and including protein. So I would really branch out, try some of the whole grains that you've never tried before. Millet, for example, buckwheat. You guys tried barley, brown rice, organic brown rice, but also maybe some quinoa, some amaranth. Some of those grains have more protein in them. Again, cooking them, the ground rule is 2 parts liquid to 1 part grain. Soak it, rinse it, and cook it. And I think you'll have a lot of fun with that, and you'll find that, again, on your plate, that would be like another quarter, and that would be like another quarter of your plate. So what does that leave? A little bit for fat and protein. So your protein source is really up to you, what you're drawn to. Again, experiment with maybe some of the plant-based proteins. Soy is an option, but I would really encourage you to really make sure it's organic soy. That is because a lot of the soy in this country is genetically modified. So unless you're really careful about reading the labels, really look for that organic, certified organic.
The interesting thing too about genetically modified is that why they genetically modified for the American market was for taste. The bitter compounds were genetically modified out.
Right.
And that's throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because a lot of those compounds are anti-cancer. So a lot of what we've done to soy in this country with GMO is to really further denature it. It's very different than the studies that were done on soy in the East for its anti-cancer capability.
Yeah, and it's actually the fermented soy products that are the most beneficial health-wise. And if you start to read labels now, you'll notice there's a little bit of soy in just about everything. Again, it's sort of the American way, finding something that's good and then kind of going overboard with it. So, you want to have, soy is a good source of protein, but again, vary it. Don't just have soy as your protein.
There are issues that it is difficult to digest, and people do have hidden allergies to soy. So as you start to bring these foods back, in, or if you overdo them,
respond
just notice how you feel. If there's any bloating or sluggishness, we need to bring.
Yeah, go ahead.
What do you recommend for bread?
I really like the sprouted wheat breads.
Sprouted
sprouted seed breads. You can find them in Whole Foods Market, for example. Often they're in the freezer, because they don't have a long shelf life. But if you can keep them in the freezer, take them out and put them in the toaster, absolutely delicious. I like the sourdough breads. There's yeast-free breads you can get. I like bread. I like really good bread.
I love bread.
So, again, find the best bread you can find. Maybe
organic bread.
Organic bread in the Neshoba Valley Bakery in West Concord. It's a great place. And experiment. There's a bread called a scene bread. It's a seeded bread.
Unleavened.
More unleavened bread. Yeah, more digestible typically. So have fun with that, experiment with that.
The other thing I'd urge you to do, if you challenge yourself this week at Whole Foods or wherever, like picking up new vegetables, trying seaweeds, a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Keep that adventure going. Stay adventurous. Keep trying a new recipe or a new food
Right.
once a week over time. So we don't get narrowed. That you continually try to experiment and expand these new compounds from these new foods that we'll receive.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to the soy and people who have heavy soy diets. I've read some concerns about the levels of phytoestrogens on menopausal women, and
Yeah.
can you speak to that a little bit?
The only thing that I can say is from what I've been reading lately, which is, again, moderation. What typically has happened is that women hear soy is good for me, soy is great for, perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. But what a lot of women are finding is that they're having digestive issues, or they're suddenly getting tired. They may have done well on soy for, even a couple of years, and then suddenly they're not handling it well. Again, it's just too much, So it's about balancing and finding out what works for you. Maybe not have 3 glasses of soy milk a day, but just 1. So
I think the jury's still out,
Yeah.
on the phytoestrogen thing, but because the picture is so skewed
Yeah.
between the hormonal imbalances that we're carrying from too much stress, from cortisol levels that are through the roof, from a real lack of omega-3s in the diet.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
that this basic chronic inflammatory hormonal imbalance that probably most Americans are carrying more than most other populations in the world is kind of skewing how soy is being received. But I think it comes down to personal responsibility, how it feels being sensitive to how it feels if you have too much, if there's bloating, if there's digestive issues, then your body is not handling that well, is not receiving it well. But I do think not going overboard. Most people say, okay, I'm vegan, or I'm vegetarian, or I'm going to have a little bit of meat and I'm going to get most of my protein from soy. Then I think the tendency is to go overdo it. The figure out of Okinawa is 30 milligrams of soy isoflavonoids a day. But they have a lot of things where they get that from, like concentrated fermented soy cheeses. That, a little toothpick just knocks your socks off. It's just so overpowering with its taste. They're not consuming, glass after glass of, 1 glass of soy milk is about 8 or 9, soy isoflavonoids in a glass of soy milk. So they're not like knocking back 4 or 5 of them a day and having tempeh and, tofu like some vegans might be trying to get overdoing it. So I think it's about moderation.
Yeah. And then the issue of protein, where does my protein source come from? Beans and rice, beans and grains is a great source of protein. Legumes, introducing that, which if you've moved into phase 3, you'll notice. A lot of times when they do this diet, people start saying there's no protein in the diet, but then by the end of it, they sort of forget that. And it's true, once you get back into your full activity, you may start to crave some protein now.
It's really a lack of protein fear that's been inculcated over the last 100 years in our society. You've got to have meat on every single dish. That's how I grew up. But you've got to get your protein every single dish.
But you are getting protein. I think that's the thing. You are getting protein from some vegetables and also from your grains and your beans once you introduce your beans in. So, again, like read your body. Also match your need for protein with your activity level. What are you going to be doing this week? What are my needs going to be? Again, it kind of goes back to the whole macrobiotic kind of concept of energy, and how you're eating is based on how am I going to use my energy. So you take in food.
That's right. It's like a car. If you're going to take it for a 400-mile drive, you're going to put a lot more fuel in it than if you're just sat at a computer all day.
Yeah, exactly. And the one missing link, though, is the fats. Don't forget the fats. It's very important. We need fat for all sorts of metabolic processes, and we want healthy fats. And olive oil is, I guess, number 1 on the list.
Fish oils would be mine.
There's some other great oils out there. Canola oil is in a lot of things. I'm not so up on canola oil because, for one thing, it's also genetically modified in most cases. So again, read those labels. But the grapeseed oil.
So ongoing then, generally speaking, you want to try to get major portion of fruits and vegetables with every single meal and snack on them throughout the day. You can't get
Right.
enough.
Can't go
I
wrong
would
with that.
also recommend doing the power greens ongoing every single day. One small glass, you get 3 portions. It's easier to get another 6 just from what we consume, and then you're up into Okinawa land of 9 portions a day. So we also need on board, grains, vary the amount of grain. Be careful not to go over the top on grains. And I think as far as supplementation goes, the power greens, the concentrate, but especially EPA and DHA, omega-3 fish oils. I would definitely supplement up to 2 grams a day. That's 1 pill twice a day with the, because that's such a fantastic source. Having fish 2 times a week is really not enough. I would add in a little bit of chicken or turkey, and that's it. From any other meat source. Personally, from what I've read in the studies on, the China study, no more than 5% of animal protein should be in anyone's diet. And then all of the little tricks that Poe will share with you, watching styrofoam, staying away from sodas, phosphoric acid in sodas is extremely acidifying. Some people believe it takes at least 20 glasses of water to neutralize the acidity that the body takes in from 1 Coca-Cola. So I think that as a society, the amount of corn syrup, the fructose, high fructose corn syrup that we're consuming is directly proportional to the complete explosion of obesity and overweight in our society.
Yeah, high fructose corn syrup, studies are showing now that it has this tendency in the body, again, to mimic estrogen-like activity. So not only is that happening, it also has an effect on the brain where it sort of blocks the part of your brain that tells you when you've had enough, when you're full. So consequently, all these drinks that you're drinking that have high fructose corn syrup, you're never full. You just keep drinking more because somehow there's this weird mechanism that happens with high fructose corn syrup. The other very serious issue about high fructose corn syrup is that it's made from corn, which is not organic, which is genetically modified. So all of us have taken these genetically modified foods into our bodies, probably unknowingly.
But even just when you think about if you correlate when the high fructose corn syrup and the whole massive overproduction of corn that's going on, and the feedlots that are feeding these, I saw a documentary the other night where they were feeding cows for the first time in the history of cows, these non-stop corn. They couldn't stop eating. There's no regulation. They just eat and eat in one position, get fatter and fatter before they get slaughtered. It's so acidic that they burn through their stomach. They have these open welts where literally you could look into the stomach and its contents. These animals are being tortured. So these high fructose corn syrup, the beef, feedlots, all of these sources are really just in the last 20 years, and we have exploded as a nation. 58 million people morbidly obese in this country is just a phenomenal figure. And that's since 1982. 1982, it's like far lower. The figures are just astounding. The 20-year increase, like no other history of no other people, no other tribe, no other nation on the face of the earth. We're going through a very dangerous experiment with fast foods and food additives that we're reaping the consequence, in my belief, of this ongoing chronic inflammation that's hidden over decades that leads into these environments of cancer and heart disease. So, just to wrap up again, the diet for life, I wanted just to bring in Yuan Ling very quickly.
Yes.
We're kind of running out of time. As a registered dietitian, Yuan Ling, at the Darcy Wellness Clinic, how would you recommend people who might have food allergies come back in?
Well, our detox program has just ended, but healthy eating hard work has just started. So don't give up. Whatever we learn, we'll bring into the future. The one thing is that a lot of people have experiencing food sensitivity, especially after detox. I think your body a lot more sensitive. You can pick up a lot. Believe it or not, a lot of people do have food sensitivity that you don't know. A lot of people have chronic nasal congestion, chronic bloating. A little bit over time, people feel this is norm, but it's not. a lot of people have an alternation of loose stool, constipation, skin reactions, a lot of things like that, irritated, eye irritation, ear blockage, all those, there are a lot of them can lead because of food sensitivity. And the surprising enough is that people who are 70 or 80, if you see there are a lot of facilities, people don't have any allergies, no peanut allergies. And nowadays there's so many young ones having so much food allergies. So what we can do is that what the allergy can lead to a lot of debilitated issues, especially in young children having ADD, attention deficit. All of that are led to, our body are fighting off all of this constant battle in our body. So as a dietitian, I like to look at people's overall diet, just going through, especially after detoxification, you yourself can gradually, noticing if any symptom changes. So we'll look at your diet and also gradually wean out the ones that give you most of the symptoms.
Great. So I would really urge
good.
anybody who wants to be coached into how to come back into a regular diet or wants to work on any food allergies whatsoever, now's the time for this group. Book an appointment, see you Ann Ling at the Darcy Wellness Clinic, get down to work and keep this moving forward, because I really think that what we've been up to for the last couple of weeks can make a huge difference on our destiny, where we were heading, towards heart disease, towards cancer, towards autoimmune problems, towards Alzheimer's. There's a lot of proof about the simplicity and of what we've been doing has a profound truth to it. So, from Poe and I, we both really urge you to take back into regular life the lessons that you felt on your own body and learned on your own body, and try to keep major part of what you learned in an ongoing way to reprogram ourselves into a healthier diet. Anything to say in summation?
Yeah, I would just like to thank you guys so much. Every time we do it, we learn from ourselves, but we learn from you a lot, and it just reinforces how simple this is, like what a profound impact really just eating really real, healthy, clean, whole food can have on not just our physical body, but our mental body, our emotional body. And, what I'm excited about is that not only will this benefit you, but this will benefit your families, your children, all your friends, the people around you. So, it's a really great thing that you've done.
And thank you very much for allowing us to share this with our Natick community through the local access. So thanks for participating in a group that's being filmed. That was really great of you. So from Poe and I and the Darcy Wellness Clinic, we want to thank you very much for joining us for the Diet Detox Program.
Toward us. In the name of Jesus Christ, you are forgiven.